Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of the UK Connection alongside my good friends here, Simon Bray and Steven Reid from over across the pond in the UK. What's up, gentlemen?
All is good, all well, fantastic. I don't know about Simon though. I'm not so sure about Simon.
Shiny. I'm very shiny. I don't like it. I'm so
Simon was
shiny.
being very picky with his camera angle and lights
Yeah.
and all that sort of thing today, but you look fine, Sean. Simon, you got to show off that shirt. I mean, that's like, you don't see a Serenity shirt out in the wild all that often. Very cool. Very cool. So today, by popular demand, we've been talking about it for a while. We finally got here. It's all about Motorhead today, favorite and least favorite albums, and of course a wild card. But before we start digging into the Motorhead catalog, a little bit of business to take care of. First and foremost, Simon, kick us off with your beverage selection of the day.
Well, I don't know if I've mentioned that I've just come back from holiday. Sorry,
Sweet.
vacation.
Yes.
Have I mentioned I've been on holiday? Did I mention that anywhere in the world? I don't know. And I've just been
Sorry,
to, yeah, sorry, Stephen. Sorry.
no, no, that's
And
okay.
I've just come back from Madeira. And Madeira, like most of Europe, has an absolute fuck ton of really gassy, really shitty lager. But your Uncle Simon, he does his due diligence before he goes. Yes, he does. And he's both had and come back with some coral stout. Mm, yeah,
Oh,
that's right. Made in Madeira. Yeah.
that's nice.
And your Uncle Simon, he's going to put it in his Motorhead overkill glass. Oh, yeah. Just, because he can. Now, Uncle Simon has also brought back another of these for one of his friends. There's also brought back a shitty lager to give to another friend and hasn't worked out who's going to give it to yet. Because that's the
Who
kind of
will
guy
be
I
the
am.
lucky contestant who wins that shitty
I
lager?
know, and I know at least one of them watches this shit, so you'll
Okay.
find out. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to pour this below the screen, and it's going to be so much better than last time. I already know that I like it.
See, I,
So
I
that's
was
right. So,
expecting a shipment of coral to arrive when Simon said, and he brought one for a friend. Oh,
oh,
that's
That's
Stephen,
what I
that's just
thought
not
too.
happening. Anyway,
That's kind of what I thought. Oh, well.
oh, it's so good. And
Yeah.
mine.
Looks good.
Oh, stop stoking, Stephen, for God's sake. Child. Your
oh
turn.
yes. Okay, so I have got. I think this is a stout. It's just a guess. It may be a stout. I don't. There's no giveaway anywhere on it. To be fair
Awesome.
though, it is a dry stout. It's not just stout. And this is from New Barnes Distillery, which is kind of Edinburgh way, is where it is. And I don't have a Motorhead glass, so I've got the Iron Maiden glass. Here we go. And it looks like that in it because I pre-poured because I don't feel that otherwise. It looks
So I
fabulous.
don't. What is a dry stout? I've never heard of dry stout, to my knowledge.
I can confirm that it's stout.
Whether it's dry or not is a completely different
I
thing.
suppose it's got a little bit of a dry finish, that kind of
Yeah.
on the palate, if that makes sense. But had it not said dry stout on the tin, I wouldn't have gone, my, that's dry. What it is, though, is creamy and lovely. It's very nice indeed.
Good. Sounds good. Well, I have got from one of the long-standing breweries in California, Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. I've got a Summerfest refreshing summer lager, and it's 5%, and it looks kind of like that. And I've got it in my
When you were,
non-metal Pine Island Brewing Company glass, which the brewery no longer exists. But
I'm going to tell on Simon there because when you reached off screen for your glass there, Simon went, when you said lager there, I'm just telling, I'm telling.
I'm
You
sure
are an absolute child. No
McClink.
wonder I haven't. No wonder I haven't brought you anything back.
this is a pretty good lager, though, I will say. Sierra
Oh,
Nevada, in my opinion,
there's an
does know what.
oxymoron.
All their beers are very good, including this one. So it's just a good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
summer.
telling on you, Simon, but I must admit, I'm not really a lager guy either.
Oh, well, everybody's teaming up on me today. All right, well, that's okay. That's all right. So, Motorhead, favorite, least favorite, and a wild card. We've each picked out our two favorite albums, our two least favorite albums. At least that's what I think we've done. And a wild card. Guys, was this hard? There's really no bad albums in this catalog for me. I quickly picked out my favorite two, and then the bottom two, I was kind of like, oh my God. It's like, what? I don't know. This was tough.
That's ridiculously difficult. Absolutely ridiculously so, which is why, as you'll find out when we get to my turn, I've cheated.
Oh, wow.
That was the way that I decided to get round how difficult this was, with a purpose and a reason, obviously.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
But yes,
Simon, I guess we'll have Simon start us off.
Oh, right. Obviously, yeah. I mean, obviously, I've cheated as well. I mean, but anyhow, you think I'm going to start you off. You would, of course, be wrong. That's what you think's going to happen. What I'd like to say initially about Motorhead is, hey, this was really difficult. Really, really difficult. I genuinely don't think there are any turkeys, but for a band that was in existence for over 40 years, you know, you can have peaks and troughs, aren't you? You can have real highs and some lows. You know, when we did Aussie, you know, there was a consistency of shitness, wasn't there, for about 30 years. And Motorhead went out of fashion, very much went out of fashion for a while, didn't they?
Yeah.
And you could argue that we're never really in fashion in a worldwide kind of sense, couldn't you? But there's a couple of myths that we need to dispel right here, right now. Do you see what I did there? I used an Oasis album. Yeah. So anyhow, one, Motorhead are not a metal band. They play rock and roll. And two, they do not, resolutely not, all sound the same. You hear that a lot, and they don't. They really don't. Most of the albums work within a similar framework, you know. Then they never break out the hip hop or anything like that. But there's a lot of interesting stuff within the entire catalogue from beginning to end. And that, since it's been 8 years since their last and their final album, I think critical consensus or critical distance is easy to be maintained. And I'm going to go with my first favourite. I'm going to shock the world because I really like late period Motorhead. Fucking love late period Motorhead. This is his last album, Bad Magic. And this is also the expanded vinyl version. How sexy is this? Yes. Very, very sexy. It's a great record. And he died 4 months after he came out, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
It's an absolute triumph over adversity. It really is. You know, it's such a good record. You know, Victory or Die, straight out of the traps. Great shit. Thunder, the Firestorm Hotel. What a tune. What an absolutely really great tune. The Devil, Brian May turns up. Electricity. It's just really, really full of energy to say that at least one of them was on the way out at the time. You know, and he sounds fragile.
He does.
And yet, you know, I'm pretty confident I couldn't have done it. Not feeling very. You know, I soak like a baby when I've got a cold. Let alone making through a really good album. And, you know, I've come to realise whilst we were doing this that these three are my favourite Motorhead. They're my Motorhead.
Your favourite lineup?
Yeah, they're my favourite. They are my favourite lineup. I think Phil Campbell's awesome. We really do.
And Mickey's just fantastic. Yeah,
Weirdly enough, I have never delved into his solo output.
I would suggest it's solid.
Solid, okay. I've never delved into it. But I think Bad Magic, I think it really, really stands up amongst the catalogue. I genuinely do. It's quite heavy rocking. Sometimes they do verge on the metal, don't they? And they do occasionally on this one. I don't know my next choice, but what a way to go out! Absolutely, what a way to go out! And yeah,
one of the unsung final albums by any band that never gets mentioned. Maybe because it's fairly recent. A lot of people talk about all the great like last albums, like Thunder and Lightning by Thin Lizzy, right? It's a great album to go out on, but I think when all is said and done, when we talk about that topic, that's going to come up. That album's going to come up quite a bit because I think well, I'll say no more in case we want to talk more about it a bit, but yeah.
Okay. As we always do when we're doing this, I'm thinking I'm gonna pick something really new. Yeah, because like I say, late period Motorhead is my thing, as you find out. And I thought, I'm going to pick a real new one, Armored, which I believe is from 2002. How new is that? It's not very new, is it? This is just great. This is, if push comes to shove, my favorite Motorhead album. Absolute favorite. It absolutely bombed, didn't it? I mean, nobody bought this except for me. Yeah, you two one imagines, but it really didn't do anything. There you go, chart wise. Walk a Crooked Mile is great. Brave New World. Now, this reminds me that Lemmy is a top-notch lyricist. If you think about something, say like 1916. If you come from one of the Lancashire mill towns like me, you think, oh Christ, that is so wow, yeah. But let's just go with Brave New World, shall we? Let's just see how prescient this is, shall we? So this is a new beginning as a new century dawns. The world's a better place for you and me. Shouldn't smoke or drink or watch that evil, filthy porn. Be Christian and God will set you free. Being poor is worse than having AIDS. The homeless live in boxes at our feet. Live in a constant state of dull, frustrated rage. The innocent shot daily in the streets. Holy shit, how prescient is that? It really is. Set against a rocking backdrop. This is such a solid record, and by solid I mean really good. I like the rewrite of oh God, this name's gone out of my head. I was for loving you. Yeah, Mine, Oh Mine. The guitar riff, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, so it's just me thinking that. Okay, but just such a good record. Yeah, like I said before, there is a framework. You've got the bass, you've got the guitar, I think Mickey D swings. Well, gets his key rings out and stuff like that. But I think he's a much swingier drummer than he's given credit for. Not like that, Stephen. All that is what I hinted, isn't it? Yeah. So, late period Motorhead. If you think, oh, Overkill, Bomber, Ace of Spades, that's where it's at. They were really good till the end. And that is my case for the defence. Yeah,
very cool.
My two favourites. And I've been doing this longer than you, haven't I? Because I had to play catch up because I stopped listening to Motorhead for a while.
He was ready to do this a couple weeks ago.
he died, and it saddened me, and I put it to one side. So yeah, there we go.
Okay, so it's usually Simon's job to cheat. So I thought, well, I'll cheat this time. I've cheated with a purpose because I couldn't narrow it down to two. I really couldn't narrow it down to two in any of these categories. To me, there are distinct eras of Motorhead. There's the early days where the band was kind of setting up, and yeah, they did have a sound at that point. They didn't just remake the same album, but they definitely had a sound. They had a kind of ethos. They definitely had a framework. And then there were those kind of wilderness years, where the lineup started to change and people would come and go, and the press hated them. Over here, they hated them. There was no two ways about it. They became band of ridicule. And then there was a kind of renaissance. I think it's a hindsight renaissance because these albums, the latter, they still didn't sell very well. And I think that it's been the passing of Lemmy and the Lemmy legend that has allowed people to go, God, they were always great all the way through. When really the press just ignored them more than anything else and kind of gave them a pat on the head every now and again. Do you know? But it did improve in the latter days. So I've gone for an album from each era, each of those three. So yeah, Okay, Overkill. You can't go wrong with Overkill. Okay, album number 2, 1979, got to number 24 in the UK charts, produced by Jimmy Miller. Yet they went on to kind of bigger and better things in terms of success. Wow. This is how to come and say hello, isn't it, really? Do you know? It's just such a good album. It's such a strong band at this stage and really hungry, going for it, aggressive, but they're still focused. And yes, they're not a metal band and they're not a punk band. They are just a bloody well dangerous rock and roll band. And I know that that's the cliche Lemmy went and said it over and over and over, but it really is true. And I like this album because it's sequenced in the old fashioned way. Side 1 starts with Overkill. Side 2 starts with No Class. Come on. Do you know? If you're going to make both sides explode right out of the off, well, that's the way to do it. But it isn't just the same thing over and over from there. You do get things like Damaged Case, which is a bit more mid-tempo. It's got a great feel. It's got a great guitar solo. Last Eddie Clark was fantastic. And then you've got things like I Won't Pay Your Price. That's all about the groove. I mean, during the guitar solo on that is almost a bit of boogie that's going on there. There's a real kind of change of feel and a change of tone, and they are doing different things. But it's all done with gravelly vocals, and it's all done with a real kind of pointedness, and they don't really take the foot off the gas in this era. Do you know? So yeah, there's lots to love in all of these eras. This is possibly the one where it was hardest to say that's the one. But ultimately, Overkill is the one for me. It's probably what made the blueprint, especially for the early era of the band, I would suggest. So then from that kind of middle era, I've gone for an album that Simon's already mentioned. So this is 1916 from 1991. It was our first album on the WRT label. The band were already having lots of issues with labels barely surviving and taking them with them and all these various things, and it didn't help them in any shape or form. This got to number 45 in the UK, and I would say that this was the band possibly one of the lowest ebbs just prior to this. I mean, rock and roll's not as bad as people say, in my humble opinion, but it was derided, absolutely derided. They were laughed at this stage. So the lineup at this point is Lemmy, it's Filthy Animal, it's Phil Campbell, and it's Wurzel. Wurzel was just a figure of fun over here. He was just laughed and pointed at. In the UK press, Kerrang especially, he really was just open to ridicule. And Lemmy would be asked questions like, why have you got this idiot in the band? I mean, it was ridiculous what was going on. So that this is such a mature album really just shoves all of that up their bum, for want of a better turn of phrase. Do you know, this to me was the first album that they did where they didn't really give a damn what had come before. It wasn't about fitting into, this is what Motorhead does and this is how the albums are going to sound. I mean, you get cracking slower numbers like Love Me Forever. And that's just a fantastic piece of work. I mean, there's brass on Angel City. It's Motorhead, but it works. It's really good. Do you know? I mean, and they open the album with the Want to Sing the Blues. I mean, right from the off, they're kind of going, do you know what? We're just going to do what we want here. Man, oh man, it's so good. I mean, you get things like Nightmare Stroke The Dream Time, and it's more kind of ambient sounds and a bit of noise and guitars, and it has no place on a Motorhead album, and it has every place on a Motorhead album. You still get things like Make My Day, great guitar work in that. Going to Brazil, kind of got that classic rock and roll feel, and I know they played that live an awful lot. And it's things like I'm So Bad, Baby I Don't Care. It was just proof that Motorhead could still be Motorhead without having to sound like a band from the 70s or 80s. And this really, I think, is an absolute cracking album. Really, really good. So then to go to the era that Simon has mentioned, so this is Lemmy, Phil Campbell, and Mickey D. And Mickey D is just phenomenal. I've kind of gone for a little bit of a curveball. I've gone for 2008's Motorizer. Okay, now this, you bring in albums, what you bring into albums. This, to me, is maybe the one that I would say, this is nearly a heavy metal album. The production is kind of rich and full. Mickey D, he never once compromised what Motorhead should be about, but his snare work on this album is brilliant, and it's just maybe a little bit more, I don't know, metallic in that kind of way, but it opens with a brilliantly stupid runaround man. So good. It's just so good, do you know? And I know that the sound here maybe isn't for everybody, but it's just so good. And then you get songs like Rock Out. I mean, Simon has mentioned what a great lyricist Lemmy is. What other band could have the line rock out, a rock out, and with your cock out, and not be Jackal? I mean, that's the thing, is when Jackal was saying she loves my cock, you were like, clowns. Lemmy sings these lines and you go, that's what Lemmy is, isn't that funny? And it is funny, it's done really well. It's still done with a way that you kind of, you never lose sight of who they are and what they are, do you know? But there's stuff like One Shot Life. I really like English Rose. That's got such a memorable chorus. It sticks to me when I finish this album. The groove on Thousand Names of God. I could have chosen many albums from the latter era, and I'm pleased that myself and Simon have already chosen 3 different ones between us, because there's so much good stuff at this point. But I've gone for Motorizer. Really good.
You know, Lemmy may have said many times that we are Motorhead, we play rock and roll, we're not a metal band. But I would argue that Motorhead were more a metal band than a lot of metal bands. And I think there's a reason why they're universally loved by practically every metal fan on the planet. So yeah, but debating, you know, what their music is, because it's kind of like, you know, Simon mentioned boogie before. They certainly boogie. They certainly have a punk side to them. I think they certainly have a hard rock and metal side to them. I think they're just kind of a great mix of all those things, but they sound like nobody else, right? They're Motorhead. So trying to put a classification on them is kind of pointless, but they are a heavy band. So that's why they're lumped in with all this, right? All right. So my number 1, this has been my favorite forever. I think it's always going to be my favorite. It's the first one I ever got. And I remember I bought this shortly after I saw them open up for Ozzy Osbourne's Blizzard of Oz back in 1981. And I saw the album cover sitting there in the record shop. And I was like, I got to have that. And it's Overkill, 1979. I mean, you know, Steven said it perfectly. There's some really good variety on this album. You got the fast and furious bangers, you know, like Overkill and Stay Clean and Damage Case and No Class. I mean, just some great songs on here. But then you got like Metropolis and Capricorn, which are really, really different. I think Lemmy's bass is huge on the whole album. I really like the production of this album. It's grimy, but it's exactly what you need. Eddie's guitar is just slashing and amazing. And it's one of the greatest album covers of all time, in my opinion. Just absolutely amazing. So that's my number 1. I wouldn't say I struggle with my number 2, but I've had, like, in more recent years, I've had a couple. The one I ultimately picked has been my number 2 forever, but I almost picked something else, but I decided to go with Ace of Spades. Again, I'm an old school Motorhead guy. I got into them very, very early on. And I mean, this is such a great album. I love the title track. You know, We Are the Road Crew is one of my favorite Motorhead songs of all time. There's so many classics on here, you know, Jailbait, Shoot You in the Back, you know, Bite the Bullet. It's just Hammer, so much really, really good stuff on here. This is one of those instances, I think, if we were to do this again, like maybe a year from now, this other album, which I may or may not mention today, might be my number 2 favorite, because I think it's really, really been building. And fuck it, it's Another Perfect Day. I really, really love Another Perfect Day. And that's one of those albums, you know, back when it first came out. I guess I'm cheating a little bit because I'm going to talk more about my number 3 than I'm going to talk about my number 2. But back in the day, you know, we all love Thin Lizzy, but when we heard that Brian Robertson basically replaced Fast Eddie, we were just in horror. There's no way this can work. And I remember buying the album at the time, and I kind of dug it, but I was like, it doesn't really sound like Motorhead. And most people I knew said the same thing. Now everybody I talk to are like, that's a great album. It totally sounds like Motorhead. He was a good fit at last. And I find that, like, the more the years go on, the more I listen to Another Perfect Day, the more I think it's an upper echelon Motorhead album than it always was. It really doesn't sound all that much different from this or this, other than the fact that you have, then you got you know, Brian's a totally different lead player than Eddie, and way more melodic and probably more technical as well. But I still think, though, that this, you know, we did a whole show on this a bunch of months ago for a reason. I mean, Ace of Spades is absolutely great, but this to me is my number 1 and my number 2 for now anyway, but this will always be my number 1. But yeah, it's hard for me. and I totally get what both of you guys are saying, especially Simon, about the more recent stuff. It is really good. As someone who's been listening from almost the beginning, I just had a hard time with displacing these two because I'm still so like kind of very loyal to those first couple albums, you know, and Bomber is great too. So those are my top two. Back to Simon.
I never know which two we're doing next. Favorite, least favorite,
Favorite.
least favorite. Okay, but just before we do that, I just want to say this about Motorizer. I don't know if I've mentioned, but I've recently been on holiday, and whilst I didn't take this compact disc with me, I did have it on. I did have the album on my phone, and I was on a bus listening to Rock Out, and I just cannot listen to that song when he says "Rock Out with your cock out." Impress your lady friends. I cannot help but laugh at that. I did it earlier today when I was listening to it, and I laughed. And this woman was staring back at me, thinking, "What are you doing, you mad English German-looking fucker?" And yeah. Anyhow, there you go. Anyway, least favorite. This is really tough.
Yeah,
because I don't really have one. Oh, where have I gone? Oh,
yeah,
there
it's
I
the
am.
Bizarro zone.
Yeah. So you've already mentioned it, Stephen. I want to mention, and I don't hate it because I do like it, but this is where I really came in with Motorhead, rock, and indeed roll. And the great thing about rock and roll, apart from the fact I'm going to mention it as one of the ones that is my least favorite, is that there's a place to come in at, and this is where I saw them on the tour for this, and if you hear, you know, the title song, Eat the Rich, Stone Deaf in the USA, Traitor, Dogs, yeah. And then you go on and you go backwards and you think, Christ, this isn't good. There's better shit than this in this catalogue. And there's going to be better shit to come. So it's, you know, I remember it getting shot all over him, didn't it? Certainly,
Absolutely. Yeah.
But actually, it's really, really solid. It's just not what came before it. I think that's, you know, kind of a problem. Yes, Stephen.
I need to ask a question, okay? Because they're on GWR here at this point and 2-bit record label, realistically, kind of came out of bronze and all that kind of stuff. What are the pictures on the back all about? This is clearly not a band shoot. I mean, here we go, right? So we've got Wurzel looking a bit mean and moody, Filthy looking like filthy. We've got Lemmy out in the sticks somewhere. What's going on here? What is this? All right, governor.
He had a day job down the pit, didn't he? Yeah. Wasn't making enough money.
So. Yeah, but I just.
Yeah.
That's his whole. I could look just as goofy as Brian Robertson picture.
It just makes no sense. No, it's just. Anyway, sorry. I was just looking at the back there thinking, who signs this shit off? Do you know what I mean? It's like.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, Simon.
In the same way, in a similar kind of, it's not as good as the other shit, but it's still really fucking good. I don't want to try and, because I really do like Iron Fist. It's, you know, it's a catalogue where if you like Motorhead, you're gonna probably like most things, or you should do. There's something wrong with you. If you don't like Motorhead, you're probably never going to get them. You could be one of those people that wears the Motorhead t-shirt, like those people who wear Ramones t-shirt, and you never couldn't say anything about them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've all seen this. We've all seen these fuckers, haven't we? Yeah, we all know them.
I saw someone out at a store recently wearing a young person wearing a Slayer shirt, and I looked at that person and I'm like, I know for a fact you have never listened to a fucking Slayer song or album in your life. They didn't even have to answer me. I knew it. I knew the answer to that. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But there are some really great tunes on this. I like Angry Motorhead. Clearly, they weren't getting on at this point, were they? You know, they were, I feel like I'm right on that one. You know, but Iron Fist is great. I'm the Doctor. I don't think they've got enough songs that mention doctors. I feel like they could really up that quotient just a little bit, don't you? America's great. Speed Freak. Oh, just don't need religion. Oh, Lemmy speaks to me really. Well, he doesn't now because he's dead. But you take my point, don't you? It's a really good album. Yes, Stephen, I'm a terrible human being. It's a really good album, but there's better.
There
And I would suggest that the production could have been a little bit more fulsome on that one.
Yeah.
They left it to the guitarist, didn't they? I think. Am I right?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
did. Absolutely.
title
It's
track is a
brilliant.
classic, though. Wouldn't you agree, Simon? The title track.
Absolutely, 100%. There are no duffers in the entire catalogue. Even the missing years. There are no duffers in this catalogue, which is what makes it so difficult.
Yep.
As I said, I think you've got to really like the band. They're not a band that you can hold half-heartedly say, like a bit of Motorhead, unless I like Ace of Spades, in which case then you don't like Motorhead. You like a song, don't you? Yeah. But I don't think it's a band where there's no half measures, I think.
I would agree.
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
Yes. Also, while I'm about to cheat, far too fucking many compilations. Too many. That's just one. That's too many. Too many. Too many. Arguably, they're also one of those bands like the Ramones where, hey, they're better known. There we go. Can you see they're better known for their merch than arguably than the music? Look at that writing between there. Look at that. Yeah. Well, look, I only bought that because it said Motorhead in it. I bought into that shit.
Why not?
Yeah, I don't even like Pilsner. Yeah. So, you see people walking around with the Motorhead man bags and everything, don't you? Like Pete says, you want to go up and say, okay, tell me all about Snake by Love. Go on, tell me now, come on. And they won't be able to. So, arguably, the myth of Motorhead has grown in the last near decade since Lemmy died. They are really good at getting to buy the same old shit over and over again. Look, he's got a swirly blue vinyl. It's replaced my cassette. Yay! It's got swirly blue vinyl because I'm a child. Yeah. And I find it problematic, but I always find the money to buy that shit.
We all do.
Indeed.
Because the curse is real.
It really is.
Yep.
But yeah, least favorite. There's a question before I do my least favorite. So Snaggletooth, the mascot, for want of a better turn of phrase. I mean, it's not until I looked through these albums to come and do this. I mean, I've had these albums, well, a lot of them since they came out, but a lot of them for a long, long time. Man, oh man, have they done the same album cover over and over? I mean, I love a mascot, and I do like the logo that's the same and all this kind of stuff. And I would argue, and people may disagree, that sometimes it's a bit of a curse because you look at Maiden and what they've done with Eddie, and sometimes it's gone too far and kind of been a bit silly because they haven't really known what to do with it. Whereas Motorhead really, in general, have just kind of gone, yep, let's just do that one again. There's just so many that look like, and I'm not going to show it yet because I'll show that in a bit, but they just kind of all look roughly the same. So anyway, least favourites. Okay, so least favourite. Same again, I've gone for 3 because I'm completely cheating on this show because I just couldn't choose. That's the truth. So I've gone for On Parole, which in itself is a bit of a cheat because it's part of the catalogue. It's not part of the catalogue. It was a cash-in by the old record label, United Artists, when suddenly Motorhead, after saying to them, guys, this is shit, we're not going to release this. Well, Motorhead sold some records and made some singles and got in the charts, and they went, oh, we'll release it now, though. So it was put out kind of after the fact. It falls roughly in around album number 3 of 4, but it was recorded before anything else. Most of it was then re-recorded and improved, to be fair, for the Motorhead album. It's an odd little thing. I mean, I think I've seen 7 different covers for this, something along those lines. It's one of those compilations, or it's not a compilation. It's one of these kind of releases that's just been put out over and over and over in the whole, and it's been expanded, and there's been different expanded versions and all that kind of stuff, just to kind of make people go on, buy it again. You know you want to. You've got it all already. So yeah, this is Larry Wallace that was in the band at this stage on guitars. It's his only recorded stuff for Motorhead, and it's still okay. There's still nothing wrong with it after all that. The problem is that they would then go and do things like Motorhead and Vibrator and things. They would do these better. is the problem. So you go and listen to this now, and I suppose it's maybe the only time you'd listen to Motorhead and go, it's a bit tame, but it's only a bit tame because we know what it was going to be more than anything else. It's okay. And I've had it for years. Do I reach for this to listen to? Nah, not really. So from the middle period, so it's Lemmy, it's Phil Campbell, it's Wurzel, and it's Filthy Animal Taylor. And it's 1992's March or Die, where we have a naked logo. This logo would appear to be naked. There's no helmet, for want of a better term of phrase. And it just all feels a bit, I mean, it's not really Filthy Animal Taylor that's on this album at all. Most of it's played by Tommy Aldridge. Mickey D appears for the first time. He does a track, and this is his start with the band, so there is an upside. And it's one of these albums that's got unimpressive guest appearances on it. You know, there's Slash there. Yeah. Ozzy's there on I Ain't No Nice Guy. And Ozzy does okay, to be fair. He doesn't just go over it again. I'm not really a Nuge fan, so I don't need a cover of Cat Scratch Fever. It's not brilliant, to be fair, but it's one of those covers where and Motorhead have done some great covers, by the way, but it's one of those covers that you hear and you go, nobody really wants to be doing this. Do you know? It just feels like somebody else's idea, to be honest with you. And yeah, the band were in turmoil. Do you know, Filthy got the heave-ho, and I know that hurt Lemmy. It's a bit lackluster more than anything else, but it's still okay. I can still put this on and think, yeah, it's okay. I quite like this. It's still a good album, but Motorhead also made great albums. So by that, it falls further down. And then for the more modern era, and same again, I'm falling into the Simon trap here, the more modern era, 23 years ago, I'm going for We Are Motorhead. Okay, I've got lots of dazzling shiny here today. Which, same again, it's not a bad album by any means. It's just Motorhead should never be nondescript, and I find this album just a little bit nondescript. Doesn't really have a kind of identity more than anything else. I mean, See Me Burning, which is what it opens with, it's still bristling and energetic. You know, Slow Dance, it's okay. It's not great. And then there's another unnecessary cover. I don't like God Save the Queen. Complain down below. I don't like the Sex Pistols, so covering it does nothing for me whatsoever. And none of it really sticks in my mind very much. Stage Fright, Crash and Burn, it's pretty decent, but really more than anything else. I suppose my problem with this is it sounds quite safe, and Motorhead should never really sound quite safe. And the song itself, We Are Motorhead, is predictable and safe, and that's a bit of a disappointment because the song Motorhead is not. So the song We Are Motorhead shouldn't just kind of go, yeah, and that's really what it does. I don't dislike any of the three albums I've just said are my least favourite, and that's really impressive for a 20-plus album catalogue, to be fair. And I found choosing any least favourites, this is one of the most difficult least favourite picks I've ever made, because genuinely, as Simon mentioned, that was a really good comparison. You looked at Ozzy's discography, and I was kind of, whoa, which of the bad ones will I choose? Whereas with Motorhead's catalogue, I really looked at it and thought, I don't really want to single out anything, which is probably why I've got any. Yeah, and I've chosen 3 for favourites and 3 for least, and I've also chosen 3 for wildcard, because I like so many that I could easily have chosen 5 or 6. I don't really dislike anything here, so they're the 3 I've gone for. So there we go.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I kind of did the same thing, and I almost wonder if we were to do this again in a couple of months, I might come up with 2 different ones at my bottom, just because maybe they're the ones at the time that aren't inspiring me as much. And I think that was, I'll use that word, uninspiring, and that's kind of the measuring stick that I looked at when I was re-listening to a lot of these albums, to think, well, which are the albums that are just like, they're good, but they're like they're not as memorable. You know, they're still good. And Steven, if you could hold up March or Die again, that's my first one that I chose from 1992. Again, not a bad album. My issue with this album, and it's like, I think there's like 2 over their whole catalog. There's only like 2 that I don't have, and that's one of them. It's got kind of like a cleaner production. The songs seem to lack a little bite. I don't need the guest stars. I don't need the Cat Scratch Fever cover, which, you know, I love the song, but I don't really want to hear Motorhead doing it. It just seems like it doesn't fit. You know, he co-wrote Hellraiser with Ozzy and Zach. It doesn't really sound like a Motorhead song. And a couple of the songs, because I think there's like a lack of like kind of like that Motorhead balls and grime. I don't know if that's words I would use, but I think you guys know what I'm talking about. There's some of the songs on this album that sound like kind of like a restrained ZZ Top almost. And I love ZZ Top, but I don't really want Motorhead to sound that way, if that makes any sense. So, but Jack the Ripper is a great song. And the title track is heavy and crushing and like it's unlike anything they've ever done. And I think that's kind of cool. But overall, I'm just not that inspired by this album, but it's not terrible. My other one that I chose is Snakebite Love. And yeah, they overuse Snaggletooth quite a bit, but I think that's a pretty bitchin' album cover, I think. And again, not a terrible album. I almost was paying to pick this one. But I just find that some of the songs on here aren't that memorable. It's a pretty heavy album, actually. But like Love for Sale is great. Dogs of War, Better Off Dead. Assassin is really kind of cool. The rest of the songs are good. It's not great. So, I think the two that I picked, I like them. I don't love them. So, and I think there's a handful of Motorhead albums that I kind of feel that way about. None of them are bad, but they just don't excite me like some of the other ones do. So, but a somewhat uninspired Motorhead album is still leagues better than a lot of albums by a lot of other bands. I mean, that's the thing, right? So, so those are my bottom two for today, March or Die and Snakebite Love, but they're both pretty damn good. Back to Simon for what we hope is going to be a wild card pick.
Hey, wow. Oh, fuck. Oh, well, never mind. There's a reason why I've got no pro. I really like it. I really do. It's so much not like Motorhead, but the songs then, and you think, oh, if they made this about 15,000 times quicker and a little bit of scuzzier, you can see where they're going. And they could have gone down let's be a little bit more classic rocky, couldn't they? They could have done many things, but they went on to be Motorhead with roughly the same set of songs that don't really sound like Motorhead. I find it endlessly fascinating. This has been in the car for months. It's also been in the CD player for months as well. It's not, I just don't take it out for a ride. I'm not that mental, but yeah. But what I would say is the tracks on this is the 1997 version. The tracks that were done with Dave Edmunds are the best things on it. So, they're so good, and yet they didn't get on and they didn't come out. And wow, they sound really good to me. They really do. Dave Edmunds make it in the States, Pete?
It came as an import later on. Yeah, it was not.
No, Dave Edmunds.
Dave Edmunds was he a thing?
Oh, Dave Edmunds. I just about the album. Sorry, you were kind of coming in and out. Dave Edmunds had like one somewhat big album here, and that was it. That was it. The Rock Pile did a little bit of something, and then he had that. I think it was that first solo album, and then never heard another thing from him.
Because he was on Swan Song, wasn't he?
Was he on Swan Song? I don't remember.
Yeah. Very odd choice, I thought. Anyway, I thoroughly recommend that. And just to become the anti-Steven, just once again, I also thoroughly recommend Motorhead Go to Mordor.
Yeah.
Sorry. We Are Motorhead. Sorry. Yes. Back cover is really shit, isn't it? That is just This could be because I was listening to it earlier today. I really like this record. Slow Dance is every week I say, well, do you know the song? One of these songs wakes me up in the middle of the night, and Slow Dance is that song. And it's not really dancey, and it's not really slow, is it? Really, but we'll go with it. I like the Sex Pistols. There you go. Don't shout at me in the thing below. But One More Fucking Time is so lovely. It's so very, very sweary. It's lovely, but not lovely because there's no love anymore. And I really like We Are Motorhead. But apparently it's just safe and nondescript and everything. I like bland Motorhead. Bloaterhead, as I like to call it. No, this is one of the ones that I thought, I think I'll just keep going back to that one every day for the last few months since we decided to do this. And key thing is, though, there are just no bad no terrible Motorhead. There's nothing where there's nothing where they go down the Jazz Odyssey route, is there? There's just
Correct.
nothing like that. But
No
it wouldn't be the UK connection if I wasn't going to cheat. All right. And I can't think of any other way to fit this album into any other show that we do. But I utterly adore Fastway's first album.
Yes.
Fucking love it. It's the best Led Zeppelin album of all time. It's the best Kingdom Come record ever. Wow, fuck, it's just whoa. Don't you think? It's just fucking
I'm a huge
great.
fan. I love Fastway. Yeah, that's a great album. Yeah.
It really, really is. Doesn't sound like Motorhead though, does it?
No.
But if you ever see it, in your charity shops or whatever, pick it up. You will absolutely love it. You'll probably be in a hooray. You'll probably be in a woo-ray. But do you know what? It's a fucking great record. It's a great Zeppelin album, which is weird because I think we all know my position on Led Zeppelin, don't we?
Yeah.
And if we don't, I fucking hate them. Yes. It's just a really, really good, solid, almost Nuobanique kind of record as well as it's cassettes, isn't it? Guess who's got his cassettes out like he promised? Your Uncle Sam. So pleased to have it back in my life. It's just great, absolutely great. Thoroughly recommend it from the tree of Motorhead.
Yes, yeah. That debut from Fastway is spectacular. Love it.
Yeah, I do often like to choose a wild card from kind of somewhere outside the actual band itself, and I didn't on this occasion, so I'm delighted that you did because that's an inspired choice, I would suggest, Simon. So I'll tell you what I haven't chosen from a wild card. Okay, so I haven't chosen the two things that really matter. Okay, because the two things that really matter, and really still all these years later, probably because of the journey, someone with a bingo card can tick that off now. Okay. There's this, okay? There's No Sleep Till Hammersmith. Okay? This to me was Motorhead when I was growing up because it's just phenomenal, for want of a better turn of phrase. It's just absolutely brilliant. And yes, I know it's short and all that kind of stuff and expanded versions and so on and so on. This is the album for me. Do sometimes more is better, and I would agree. I can take more live Motorhead. I'm not going to say no, but this will always be the album for me. But there you go. But more than that, the other one that I'm not going to choose, okay, is No Remorse. Okay. This is just an early compilation. It's just brilliant. Excuse me. It is brimming with Motorhead classics. Ace of Spades, Motorhead, Jailbait, Stay Clean, Too Late, Too Late. I'm only on side one. There's 4 sides of this stuff here. But there's new tracks. Killed by Death. I love that song. I absolutely love it. Snaggletooth. I mean, come on. Oh, this is so good. And it's got a nice PVC cover on it. I love this album. I haven't chosen it because I'm staying true to the ethos of let's do the 3 albums. Okay, so yeah, okay. Another Perfect Day. That's my wild card from the early period because, yeah, we've got to change a guitarist and it shouldn't work. And it does work. It is a little bit more melodic. It does make, well, I suppose, no sense, but it makes all the sense. It's really, really good. Do there's stuff on here that just absolutely works. I really like the kind of Motorhead with a little bit of melody in there. It's not watered down, it's not tame, it doesn't pull back. It's just slightly different. And I really like it. And I've always liked it and been a little bit confused as to why people don't more than anything else. Shine we had on 7-inch single back in the day. The opening to that is just fantastic. It's just so good. So that's my wild card from the early days. I've then gone to 1986 for Orgasmatron, which is either the best or worst album title in your life.
Cracking album.
Not really convinced by the cover totally. Train with Teeth. But anyway, I kind of get the point, And the production is interesting, but it doesn't ruin it in any kind of way for me. And there's stuff in here, Death Forever, Dr. Rock, Claw, another Doctor song for you, Simon, and the title track. Oh, massive. Pete Gill on drums. That's a theme, No Remorse in this as well. And then he was off ski because he had ideas above his station. Imagine getting into a band like Motorhead and then thinking you could change the direction. I don't think you've understood your brief here, but anyway, let's move on. And yes, I'm saying they just make the same album cover over and over and over, but in general, they're pretty good. This is Inferno from 2004. It's not an out-and-out classic, but there's things like Killers, Life's a Bitch, Fight, just an absolute blast of an album. You know, there's the country blues of Poorhouse Blues. And one of the reasons I picked 1916 as one of my favourites was because that seemed to be the gateway for Motorhead to say, do you know, we will do things a little bit different. We are going to throw in some blues songs. We're going to throw in some ballads. We're going to do some acoustic stuff. And I don't care what anyone thinks is what Lemmy's thought was at the time. And that's what he put out there and that's what he said. And these kind of songs work. They really, really work. Sometimes his vocals are a bit ropey. Sometimes they're brilliant. And I think they're really good on this. The kind of slower ones and that, he's really hit a sweet spot. And that's my wild cards. I mean, I've chosen half the catalogue between the three categories.
That's okay. So I like that you brought up Orgasmatron. I almost picked that as my wild card. That's a really, really strong album. It's a banger of an album. I ultimately decided to go with another one, and we've already talked about it today, but my wild card is Bad Magic. And of course, I got the black album CD cover. You guys have the white one. But the final album from 2015, you know, considering all that Lemmy was going through at the time, he was a really, really sick man. This, you know, other than his vocals sounding a bit frail, but the songs are fast and frantic and heavy. And I mean, if you put like Lemmy's vocal, how do I rephrase this? If you were to take these songs and with a Lemmy vocal performance circa like 1985, you might have one of the greatest Motorhead albums right here. I think the only thing that kind of holds it back a little bit is the fact that he does sound, I mean, you could tell that there's something going on. I mean, he not only does he sound older, but he sounds like he's going through some shit. But the vocals are not bad by any means. But man, this is a banger of an album. So many great songs. Victory or Die is so great. Thunder and Lightning, Evil Eye, Tell Me Who to Kill. I mean, just you go up and down. It's just fast, frantic Motorhead like you want to hear him. And I really think, you know, we were talking about it before. I think that years down the line, when maybe Sea of Tranquility is not having conversations like this anymore, but maybe some other channel or some other group of folks are sitting there talking, and they're talking about those great final albums from like a rock or metal band. This is going to be up at the top of the list because I think this is really, really strong. And as it is, I picked it as a wild card because with a catalog like this of so many really, really strong albums, as good as this is, it's probably, for me, I tend to always go with stuff that I think is right in the middle of the pack somewhere. This is still right in the middle of the pack, but it's really, really good. And it's a great way to go out. So, yeah, that's my wild card for today. Bad Magic.
Have the Funhouse done great final albums?
I don't know. I think we did on Hudson Valley Squares. I think. I don't know. I'd have to double check. I know we've done it or talked about it, but it's interesting because, you know, there's so many great first albums, but how many, you know, and you have to, obviously an album can only be in consideration when the band is officially done at that last album, right? Can't just be a band that's on hiatus for like 5 years, right? Oh, but their last album was really good, but we still might get something from them. Like there's never going to be another Motorhead album. There'll never be another Thin Lizzy studio album, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's a great topic, right? And you really have to think hard. Like, what are those great final albums? Like, is In Through the Outdoor a great final album? Obviously, Simon would say no. Right? It's a really
you actually own that.
Is it
big thumbs up for me, by the way? Yes,
I mean, I like it. Is it great? I don't know if it's great. Maybe. Is Black Sabbath 13 a great final album? It's good. I like it. You know, I don't know if it, you know, like to me, this is a great final album. Thunder and Lightning is a great final album. I'm trying to think of other, you know, off the top of my head, I'm not coming up with any, but I'm sure if you stop and think about it, you know, like think of Ronnie James Dio's last Dio band album, right? Was Magica the last one?
Oh, there's many more after Magica.
So
Master of the Moon.
Not the Dragon album. I'm trying to think of what the last Dio album was. I mean, they're all kind of jumbled together. I'm trying to think which one came last. Anyway,
the final Dio album was Master of the Moon in 2000.
Oh, Master of the Moon. Good album. Not a great album, I don't think. You know, so it's just last album by Genesis. I mean, we can go last album by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. We can go on and on and on, naming all sorts of albums by bands that are officially done, and many of them don't quite qualify as greats. You know, it's like, oh my God, they went out on top with that one, right? So
it feels to me like Simon's just created an offshoot. I know that we do the 3 shows round and round. Feels to me like Simon set a challenge here. And rather than give it to the Funhouse, I'm going to be selfish and say we should take this.
We can do that. We can do that.
Because I'm sitting here going, I really need to think about this.
Because this one is going to make you think, right? Because these aren't albums that are instantly going to jump out at you. You really have to go and look and say, all right, because again, with the criteria that the band is no more, right?
That's what makes it really difficult, because there's a lot of current older bands that are still making really great albums, but they're still making really great albums, so they're not done.
Right.
That's the problem.
Yeah. So it can be done. They're out there. Trust me, they're out there. So we'll talk it over and see. Maybe we can come up with we can do this, because I think that would be interesting. Like maybe we each come up with our 3 favorites, right? We've already named a couple, obviously, but still, it's we'll talk about it. Anyway, Steven, you want to give everybody a little taste of what's happening in 2 weeks?
Okay, so in 2 weeks' time, we are ranking the songs on a classic album. And I know that anyone that is invested in this band will immediately go, is that the classic album? We don't care. Okay, we had this conversation a few weeks ago, and I would suggest there's just more than one that we could have said was the classic album. So that's just a strength to Y and T, which I've pronounced very slowly, because with my Scottish accent, it very quickly becomes 1T. Okay, so they are Y and T. Okay, and we've gone with Earthshakers. That's the first album as Y and T. Is what we've gone for. So we'll be ranking the songs on this in 2 weeks' time. This is a great album.
Yeah. So folks watching probably like, well, how about Black Tiger and how about Mean Streak? Yeah, I mean, all 3 of them could be considered their classic album. So we decided to go with the one that we like the most out of the 3 of us, kind of.
We decided to go on the one that Simon has.
Was that
Simon's suggestion to me? That was Simon's suggestion
a while ago. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah.
This was personally my favorite. It's my favorite, so I was totally
my favorite too. It's my favorite too. This was one of these times where this band had come up in conversation, and Simon was honest enough to go, I don't think I've heard anything by them. I certainly have nothing by them, and all. And as we communicate through Twitter, he basically went, look what I've got. And from there, a show was born.
There you go.
Not doing Triumph. Triumph can fuck off. That's not happening. Unless I see one out there in the wild, like I did with Y&T. £5. What a bargain.
Do you know you'll find much less in the way of Triumph as you go through the stores, because most of it was never really released over here.
True.
I can live with that. I also wasn't expecting you to hold up Y&T, so really should pay more attention.
Simon, what did you think we were doing next?
Certain neo-prog band that were once led by somebody that lives under the sea.
SpongeBob SquarePants.
That's right. What a classic. Yes.
Okay.
We'll get to that one, Simon. We'll get to that.
We will get to that one, yes. And it is on the schedule that I painstakingly put together for us all. It is there. But I'll just tell you, not yet. You're actually working about 4 shows in advance now.
Just kind of commitment you get from me.
We'll get to the Ocean Dweller soon enough. Don't you worry. Now people are like, are they talking about?
It makes a lot of sense of a tweet that I sent to you the other day, doesn't it?
So yeah, we've got a pretty busy schedule over the next couple months. So we've got everything all mapped out, and but now we've thrown a little hook in there with this whole like best final album. So we'll figure it all out, and we may throw that in between some of this other stuff. But yes, Y&T will be next. Very cool album for those who have not listened to Y&T or maybe haven't heard that album. You're in for a treat. It's a good one. So you got your homework. So we're going to be ranking the songs on that great Y&T album. So you guys do the same. Be ready to have some discussions 2 weeks from today. And visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alerted of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. And let's hear your favorite, least favorite Motorhead albums down in the comments below. Add your wild card. And until next time, for Simon, Bray, and Steven Reid, I am Pete Pardo. We'll see you in 2 weeks here on the UK Connection for a little Y&T talk. Till then, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.